Hello, and welcome to Children in Our Lives, a program where children and adults speak about violence against children. On this show, we talk about the way we relate with our children, and we speak to different members in our community, find out what they think and how we can prevent violence against children. Today we will be discussing economic violence. We'll be hearing a story about a child who has experienced economic violence, told by your favorite storyteller, Mr. Wanjezi Stephen. Today on the discussion panel, I'll be talking to Prosi Nakanjako from Raising Voices and Nalongo Turiasingura Hope from the Center for Domestic Violence Prevention. And finally, we shall hear from Professor Maggie Chigozi, the Executive Director of Uganda Investment Authority. So let's begin with a story. As you listen, think about the children in your lives. Think about the violence inflicted on them. Does this happen where you live? What are your thoughts?
How are you?
Very well.
How are the children?
They are doing very
You are
well.
very welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome this other evening. Look at this one.
Yes.
How are you? This night now, again, another real true story. True story. No more legends. The one I'm telling today is about a boy called Akamba. Yeah, I'm using the name. I not the bus to Kenya. No, I am changing the boy's name because, as I said, the story is true. I want to protect him, so I'm using the one Akamba. Yeah, because the other time I used it, and you thought it was the other man. Yeah. Now Akamba, 10 years old, brilliant young boy. You know, a 10-year-old boy is supposed to be jumping and playing. They're like, these ones are always disturbing here. But Akamba is always asleep in class.
The
boy is supposed to be okay. But every day, even in the morning, within the first lesson, and the teacher, boom, boom, wake up, boom, and of course they hit on the head.
Without understanding what the problem was.
Now, poor Akamba life has become very difficult. One day, their neighbor, Mama Rosie, was passing by the police station, and he saw Akamba hiding behind an electricity pole. You know, at the police station, the electricity pole which is directly in front of the door. Yes. That's where the boy was hiding. Yes. Now, Mama Rose wondered, what is this boy doing here? Then, the boy would get out, try to go, but still come back and hide, try to go, until Mama Rose said, let me go and see. She came slowly, and said, what are you doing here? Said, no, it's okay. What is the problem? Then the boy said, what? I have to go there. To do what? You see, I lost money. I lost Mama's money. And like last time, Mama sent me to buy salt in the evening. Then a boda almost knocked me. The money fell. When I went home, Mama beat me and said I was a thief. And she told me that if I lose any other money, I should take myself to police. I should not go home. So, the Mama Rose said, now what has happened? When I came from school, Mama gave me maize to go and sell in the market. I went and sold. When I tied the coin on the hanky, now I see the hanky does not have the money. Oh. I cannot go to mommy because last time when I lost the money for salt, she beat me so much. Now I'm going to police because that's what she told me. Mama Rose was very angry. She was burning with anger. Said, come, let's go and talk to your mother. They went. On reaching, the woman was seated in the door with her legs out. And Mama Rose thought this was the right moment. Said, this boy, every morning I see him running up and down, fetching water, and he always goes to school late. He must be getting to school when he's late and tired. When he comes in the evening, the moment he gets here, he goes fetches water. I see him taking baskets of maize to the market. When does this boy rest? Ho, ho. The boy's mother. Hey, you woman, who do you think you are? Who are you to come here and tell me what I should do with my children? I don't want my children to be lazy. They must work. I don't want them to grow into lazy adults. Have you ever seen me coming to your home to tell you what to do with your children? So, Mama Rose was embarrassed. She left and left the poor Akamba with the mother. One day, Mama Rose is in the house. And then she heard a huge sound. Boom!
What was it, bomb?
No! When she looked through the window, it was poor Akamba who had fallen down with a huge jerrycan of water on his chest. A 10-year-old boy with a 20-liter jerrycan of water on his chest. She rushed. She ran to their home. And the mother came out of the house. Ah, my child is suffering. Oh, I hope my child, woo-wee! Mama Rose was so angry, but she did not have time to quarrel. She simply helped the mother. They carried the poor boy to hospital. But of course, inside, she was regretting why she did not insist the other time. The mother, on the other hand, was saying, I hope my boy doesn't die. How I wish I had not sent him to do all this work. How I wish I had even given him some food before sending him for water. Because she used to send this poor kid to do all this work without giving him food. He was always hungry, always tired, would not have had enough to sleep. He would have been overworked. And from that day, the mother regretted and realized that it was dangerous to overwork children. Don't let the work of adults be done by children. A child is a child. Yes. Eh? Yes. A child is a child. Like that one playing. Let the children be able to play. Child labor. Hey, children are not workers. Eh? Yes. Thank you very much. That's our lesson for today. Thank you. Thank you.
In the studio with me right now, I have Prosi Nakanjako, the Senior Program Officer from Raising Voices, and Nalongo Turiasingura Hope, the Technical Advisor at the Center for Domestic Violence Prevention. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yes. Hope, if I could start with you, what do you think of Kamba's story? Does this happen to children in our community?
Wow, what I can say about that story is that is a tip of an iceberg. That so many children out there are experiencing the same and even worse situations than that one. It is terrible. But the issue is that these children don't have the power to open up and talk about it. Because sometimes most people who are doing it to them are their parents, whom are at the same time they are looking for basic necessities. Therefore, they cannot come up and say anything about it, but they are going through terrible times. Yeah.
And Prosi, now, some people would say, when you say economical violence, aren't children supposed to work at home? Is there a difference between economical violence and then children actually helping out at home?
Yeah, sure. Many people give an excuse when you talk about economic violence. They say, yeah, but children have to learn how to work. How else would they appreciate work as adults if they are not told as children? But then what happens here? Children end up being exploited. You find that many times children are overworked. They're given work which is well beyond their age. You know, you find a child who is 10 years but carrying a 20-liter jerry can for a long distance and then this child has to go many times to fetch that water over and over. So all this is economic violence. And then you find in some instances the parents who are supposed to provide for the children don't do that. They leave the children to fend for themselves. Many times downtown there in the markets, you find a child who is hardly 8 years but carrying a big basket of maize. The maize is hot on the head. They need someone who is going to buy the maize to help them carry the basket down, buy the maize, and help them carry again on their head. And remember, sometimes it's hot, dripping water, you know, and the child has to move all around doing that. Sometimes these children don't go to school, you know, they are denied education because they have to make money to provide for their families. Even in some areas, we find that these children are sent to do prostitution, you know, so that they can bring food on the table at home. So, and this they do when the parents are home sitting or they're in bars drinking. Yes. Actually, we went in one of our community events, you know, raising voices. We go from one town to another, having dialogues with the public around violence against children. And in these dialogues, children speak out. But one thing that stuck in my head, one child said is that, you know, our parents, they don't work to get food for us. These days, we are the ones who are working so that we can make money and buy food for our parents. They should stop that. They should send us to school. This is a child who said it in Kayunga. And you see that children are affected and they see that it's exploitation and they want help. They are speaking out. So this is the kind of violence, economic violence we are talking about. Not homework for where children have to contribute to work at home. But yes, we are talking about overworking them. We are talking about denying them access to family resources.
But then you find there situations where some children have to work. If they come from poor families, they do have to contribute. What about that?
It's really sad that some people think that if children are coming from poor families, of course they have no choice to work. But where are the parents? The parents should work harder. You know, I always give you a situation. If a child went to wash dishes, for instance, in a restaurant, they won't get the same pay as an adult. So you are not solving the problem if you send a child to work. It's better the child works because the child will be given better pay. And in most cases, these children are not paid at the end of the month. So it's low pay they negotiated with, but at the end of the month, their payment is either delayed or it doesn't come at all. So you find that still, you send them to work there, exploited. But worst of all, most times these children who are exploited economically, for instance, they are working in stone quarries, or they are selling these metals, scrap. They don't go to school. What does that mean? That means that as adults, they won't get better employment, and the cycle of poverty is going to continue. So instead of sending the children to school so that they can come out of that cycle of poverty, you are sending them to hell because they are going to be in the same situation as adults and they are going to cause the same suffering to their children.
In your opinion, what are the consequences of economical violence to children?
Yeah, the consequences of economic violence can be both physical, can be mental, and can be social. What do I mean by this? For instance, Proce has talked about children carrying heavy loads. Those heavy loads have got a physical impact on their body. Some of them you find that they are retarded because their bodies are carrying heavy loads that they are not supposed to be carrying. And at the end of the day, sometimes they develop even chronic diseases. They get heart diseases, they do, because of doing work that they are not supposed to be doing.
So that's what when people give and they say stunted growth.
Yes, stunted growth. And then when I talk about mental, like when they are carrying those heavy loads, what are they thinking within their brains? You get? They get psychologically tortured because they see other children going to school. For them, they are not going. They are working for money and they don't even see it at the table. When they are sick, they are not being treated. So they are asking themselves, why on earth do they work like that? At the end of the day, they are not benefiting from their sweat. So they get psychologically tortured. Then what I mean by socially is that now they are being denied access to education. So as Proce has said, if in terms of human rights, rights are interdependent and interrelated. If you are denied one right at one particular time, that means all your rights that would be enjoyed in the future are going to be compromised. If you don't have education, then you cannot access employment. If you cannot access employment, you don't have money on you. Then when you are sick, you cannot access medical services. You cannot access food. You cannot access anything because you were denied a right to education because you were busy being engaged in the work that you were not benefiting from. So a whole child gets affected when they're engaged in this kind of work that they are not supposed to do, and they fail to acquire what they would have acquired.
So now that we know, okay, it's wrong. It's really, I mean, the worst situations are parents who do nothing and they make their children do all the work. What message do you have to parents when it comes to these kind of situations?
Yeah, normally when we talk, they tend to say, but for you, you see, you are okay. It's not a matter of being okay. The starting point is us as parents to plan for our children. Before you have that child, what plan do you have for that child? Because you must have that child knowing very well that they need food, they need education, they need medication when they are sick, they need everything. A lot of things they are going to be depending on you. Not you depending on them. Because most people think that the more children you have, the more riches you are going to have. But if you want those riches, you must produce quality children. Very few children that you can be able to invest in terms of education, in terms of medication, in terms of nutritious food, so that even when they go to school, they can be brilliant children. And later on, they are doctors, they are engineers, they are police officers and all that. So that later on in life, you can benefit from them. You plan for whatever you can afford within your reach. Me, whenever I tell people that I have only 2 children, they say, but hope, but hope. Yes, I looked at myself and I said, now, if I venture into having more children, am I going to be able to bring them up, to give them the life they deserve? I decided to have only 2. So that is a call to all parents out there. And even those who plan to be parents, don't produce by coincidence, by chance, by mistake, by what? Because this is what is happening. You go to the streets and see these children who are begging. And they are even starving. They beg, the adults take the money. You find the adults eating when the children are only begging. So that is a crime. Even the state should be really holding them accountable, those people who are doing that. Look at your children going to work as housemates. Do you know what happens to those young girls who work as housemates? They are denied food. You prepare very good food, you put it at the high table, then you go back to the kitchen to prepare beans and posho. You are denied access to milk. You only take dry tea. You don't even taste the bread. And yet it is you who is making it. You get? And at the end of the day, you are paid only 20,000 per month. You wake up at 5 a.m. to prepare for these children who are going to school. From that time up to midnight, you are not going to sleep. But at the end of the day, you are only given 20,000 shillings per month. Is that fair for your children? Those of you who are sending your children to go and do this kind of work, is that fair?
So we need to protect our children. Any last remarks on how we can avoid economic violence to our kids?
Yes, I really thank the government for putting in place UPE, and I'll ask again the government to make sure that UPE is well delivered, to improve on the delivery of UPE everywhere, especially in rural schools. Because one of the challenges that parents and children in rural areas face is the poor delivery of UPE. The classes are congested, the teachers rarely come. You know, at the end of the day, they feel like you waste 7 years in education and you come out with nothing. So if UPE is improved on, I'm sure the parents will feel that it's worthwhile spending those 7 years in school at least. And now we are lucky we have universal secondary education. So if the child finishes the first 7 years, there will be no turning back. They will be encouraged to go on and join universal secondary education. And through that, we can break the cycle of poverty so that we don't have to exploit our children.
It should be a collective responsibility for those of you who are already parents, and for those of you who are not yet parents, I have told you the first step is plan before you have any child. We don't want any mistake children. For you see children on the street, but those are street children. They are not street children, they were not born by the streets. Don't produce children to go on the streets. Make sure that even if it is only one, produce one, and make sure that you have the capacity to give the basic needs for that child for their better future.
Welcome back. In connection with today's topic, economic violence, we speak to Dr. Maggie Chigozi, the Executive Director of Uganda Investment Authority. She shares with us her opinion on the economic exploitation of children in Uganda. Thank you so much for joining us on Children in Our Lives. What do you think about the economic exploitation of children? Sometimes they work in hazardous environments like stone quarries and, God forbid, even brothels.
It is a terrible experience for any child. It is also illegal. Our laws, we have very new, very updated labor laws, clearly state it is not acceptable and you could face the law if somebody reported this. So it is something that can be addressed. It should be stopped. We have universal primary education. These children should be in school. What are they doing in stone quarries and, heaven forbid, brothels?
And what is your opinion on child domestic workers?
Child domestic workers should not exist. It is, again, very wrong. A child should be in school, should not be working. Government has free primary education, they should be in school. As parents and as friends and neighbors, we should be supervising one another. If any of us see a child that's not going to school, that is staying at home, and maybe you can even see the child working as house help, one should report this to the LC1 and certainly to our woman representative at the LC1 level, and she should be able to take action. But even as a Ugandan, as an African, in our culture, we look after other people's children. Your child is my child, and I am interested to see that her rights are not abused. It's usually the girl, of course. Girls are more useful in the home, and that's even worse. We need to achieve gender balance in schools.
In your opinion, how is employing children affecting Uganda?
Employing children would affect Uganda very, very negatively. These are our future. Instead of going to school, they are working, they are malnourished, they do not sleep enough, they fall sick and probably do not get to hospitals. So everything is wrong with a child being working when they're still underage. I think we need to have the social networks, the extended family come in and to support these children.
Now you've heard the story and different opinions on economic violence, but what matters is what you think about it. Does economic violence happen in your community? What are you going to do about it? Think about it until we meet next week, same time. Thank you for watching.